The next section, titled Documentation here, and for most student proposals for the course, is a combination of the citation, style, choice, and rationale section listed on your assignment prompt and the 3 annotated source citations section listed on the proposal assignment prompt. These sections are also the ones that I usually see the most students end up having to resubmit something for. So it is worth paying attention to this point of the video. Before I do, however, on a smaller document design issue, do you see how we have a heading title here on page 6 and then we have the text start on page 7? This is a violation of proximity, which is that you should place like information together so readers draw associations with information placed close together. So we would want to move documentation to the next page, or we will want to make space so that some of this text would go to the previous page, get like at least a line or two, so that we would have some kind of continuation of the section. Now that said, let's try to clarify what has to go on here with this documentation section, so that hopefully we can have you avoid resubmitting things. The first thing that needs to take place from those 2 sections is some kind of clear statement that identifies the specific citation style that you have selected to use in your analytical report, such as APA, Chicago, MLA, etc., and why that citation style is an appropriate choice for the particular scenario or rhetorical situation you're proposing for your report, and almost more importantly, why that citation style is equally an appropriate one for your particular field of specialization or one you might use in your professional future field. Next, you also need to research 3 legitimate sources related to your project. And each source, now these are outside sources, must be 1, documented in the style that you have chosen correctly. Okay? What this will do is it will prove to your instructor that, yes, I know how to use this style. And then secondly, you want to provide an annotation of that source, which should include the following. 1, a concise summary of the source. So what is the source about? Okay, what conclusions does the source draw? What does the source investigate? What points does the source make? Those sorts of things. Second, an evaluation of the source. These can be things like, would it impact the source's ethos, or things like authority, the source's legitimacy. You can evaluate, like what evidence the source uses. Is the source biased? Those sorts of things. And finally, how the source is relevant to your project. Now, sometimes at this early stage, you will use a source just for background information, as we mentioned in some of the assignment prompt videos. But don't think that that is not a legitimate reason to list here. That is perfectly legitimate. Okay, but it is good for you to let your instructor know that. Now, if you notice the annotations in the sample here, you will notice that I've replaced them with a repeating description of what you need to include in your annotations to your instructor. And I've done this because this really is the section that people most often need to redo. And so I would rather spare you that pain. And finally, here the writer has aptly labeled the closing section permission instead of closing, because that really is the final thing you will need to do in your proposal, and that is ask permission to move forward with your project. That's really the whole purpose of the proposal. And so it makes complete sense to label it permission or something that means the same thing or conveys the same idea. Even though you officially do that here, a word of advice from one who has taught this course for many years: keep moving forward with your project and do not wait for your instructor to grant you permission. If you need to change your plans when you hear back from your professor, so be it. But that is a much better scenario than waiting to hear back and falling behind in your plans because you do so. Grading and returning these proposals often take your professor a while, and even if you have to modify things a little, which is completely not unusual, the core of your proposal typically will remain fairly close to the proposed one, even if you do have to revise things. And as I said, even if not, I would rather take that chance than waiting to hear back from the professor and falling behind. Those of you taking this as a summer class should take a special heed to this advice. You really do not have the time to squander. Okay, so that concludes the student sample video series of the proposal and analytical report. I hope these have been helpful, and I also encourage you to revisit these videos to renew your memory about some of what we've covered as you get closer to or are going through the actual drafting and revising processes involved in producing either the proposal or the analytical report documents themselves. Best of luck with these. I hope you do great.